Welcome to this week's edition of MDM's Quicktake. I'm Tom Gale, and my guest this week, once again, is Mike Marks of Indian River Consulting Group. Welcome, Mike.
Hello, Tom. It's good. And I love these conversations. I'm always interesting where we end up taking it. We get in a little trouble, but it's fun.
I think it's a good time to talk a little bit about playing offense in defensive times. We've talked about this before, but a lot of economic reports are coming in for the third quarter. Anecdotally, our team's hearing from different sectors of distribution. Things are slowing, things are kind of moderating. It depends on the specific sector. We just got our Baird Q3 survey results in this past week, and things are flattish to declining a little bit. It really depends. A little bit of improvement in certain sectors. The way that our good friends at Baird characterized it on one of their slides that they share with our premium members is anemic trends continue, slightly better quarter to quarter, but flattish overall. I guess the technical term is things are squishy right now.
Yes, I think this shows an improvement because if you go back to the Great Recession, after we got through the shock and NAW was talking about flat growth, which I thought was an oxymoron, like military intelligence and mature male. And now we have a new word, it's flattish. I think that's a really cool word. So
one of the comments that came in from the survey from a mechanical power transmission respondent, I just want to share this because I think it really captures it well. Again, kudos to the Baird team because they're just all over this. We ended the quarter virtually flat with last year. September, our sales were down year to year for the first time in 3 years. At the same time, if you compare this quarter to anything historical, it's way over what we've done in the past. I just get the sense we're in a normal environment with the supply chain having worked itself out, manufacturers having shorter lead times, customers aren't ordering out 18 to 24 months.
Yep. Distributors, if you go back to the pandemic, our inventory to sales ratio spiked because everybody's trying to get a hold of any inventory they can. Distributors are still trying to bleed off their inventory, and so are customers in a lot of cases. So they're still using the same amount of products. They just built so much inventory up, they want to bleed that inventory up, so it just slowed down the repurchase rate. So it's really more, in my mind, more a question of timing. The thing that to me is going to be interesting is that when you talk about, and I love this word, flattish growth, if you just think about the curve, the bell curve of growth, the standard deviation, when it's small, you have like a real peaky curve that everybody's going to grow 3% or down 3%. What happens in these kinds of times, the standard deviation gets really big, the curve gets flat. So even though it's going to look relatively flat, there's still going to be some areas that have some significant growth that are offset by the people that have the losses, especially around inventory reductions. So when you net it all out, it comes out, it's just a little bit positive, but everybody's going to have to pay attention to their own deal. I mean, there's not going to be a herd. There's going to be all kinds of different scenarios people are going to have to deal with, I think.
That's also borne out, Mike, by monthly wholesale distribution revenue trends. We are far above anything pre-pandemic in terms of the rate of sales and just the level of sales. Now, certainly part of that is inflation fueled over the last 2 to 3 years. But we are at a place right now where the last quarter or two has had some pretty positive indicators. Our MDM forecast update for Q3 and then going into Q4 in 2024 also was just updated. And it's important, I think, from a context standpoint, we're now overall wholesale distribution, we're now forecasting a minus 1.5% decrease over previous year. Now, the previous year was 15% above the previous year, which was 21%. 21 and 22 were extremely strong years and bounce back years, clearly. So 2023 is flattish, but you talk to most distributors, they're not really complaining about the kind of years that they're having. They're still having very good years overall. And when you look at 2024, it really looks like things are starting to stabilize around single-digit growth. Back where right now, overall wholesale distribution, all sectors, about 3% growth. Now, certain sectors across like electrical looks like Q3 might have been the trough, Q2, Q3, and things are starting to bounce back a little bit earlier. HVAC, industrial, everything's at a little bit different point in the cycle. But overall, 2024 is starting to look positive, slow growth.
That kind of fits what I've just been hearing on the road from people. But The other thing, when I went through the report that you sent me in terms of your update, I'm surprised, and essentially it just confirmed what I thought originally, that some industries are looking at various growth rates based on where they are in that cycle and burning inventory off, because some look relatively decent and some look kind of a little tougher. So it's kind of like telling somebody it's a salad dressing and an industrial lubricant. Everybody looks at you, what does that mean? But it's just, everybody's going to have to find their own path through this, I think.
You've been through enough of these cycles to not only get the t-shirt, but the tattoos. 2024, slow single-digit growth.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people as they plan out 2024 right now?
Well, two things that I think are going to be sort of unique about this one is the market is solid enough, and manufacturers are basically going to be assuming they're going to gain market share. They always think we're going to grow. The problem with the manufacturers is they actually go ahead and build this stuff and end up with a bunch of finished goods inventory. So if they're all forecasting 5 and 6% growth and they're having 1%, we're going to have a lot of finished goods inventory, which puts more inventory in the channel. Suppliers are going to be desperate. It's going to put more pricing pressure on. The second trend, and there's usually a lag before they actually settle down in terms of production. The second thing is that customers during the pandemic changed and broadened their supply base a lot just for access to products. And a lot of distributors got new relationships with customers. And now the thing that you say, things have settled down, that the customers are unhappy with all the price increases. So you're also seeing, we just had another client that was on the wrong end of the curve when they decided to consolidate their distributor base, and they got left out because somebody undercut them. So you're going to see a lot of customers trying to get back to not necessarily the same suppliers, but reduce it so they can leverage their buy power. And so that does it. So if I was a distributor, there's 5 things I'd do. I would take a look very closely at my last price paid activities, because pricing's changed a lot. And I would go through and audit everything you're selling at the last price paid is probably out of date, and those need to be changed. I would also make sure, and this would be a CEO going back to make sure my purchasing and supply chain guys are leveraging every possible stock rotation that I have with the supplier. And I would also be dealing with a lot of my long tail inventory. The second thing is that this is the calm. I mean, we're still going to have growth, Tom, but if you go back and look at what the key initiatives were in the Baird report that you're going to send out to your premium members, nobody, in terms of their top priorities, they weren't really concerned about the economy. They're all about innovating and digital and doing this. And if we're going to have a quiet year, it's the perfect time to invest in technology, do some innovation, so you can use 24 to get everything working right. Because when this thing comes back, the gap between the innovators and the laggards is going to be even bigger. The third thing is, if it's volatile, you need to react quickly to threats and opportunities. That's the main thing that I learned hanging out with a 90-year-old billionaire who made all his monies in the 70s. And he basically said, people don't like change, and they struggle and they drag their feet. And if you move quicker, speed is going to be a weapon in this kind of time. But I would also, once the manufacturers are choking on inventory, I would go back and make a lot of effort to get a better buy price by maybe giving them a blanket order that's non-cancelable with monthly releases. That's the old recession game. And then the last thing would be, if customers are going to be consolidating their supplier base, this is a great opportunity. If a distributor decides, I'm going to go up market, instead of just sitting here looking at price, I'm going to go in and try to be the consolidator and put a value creation plan together with consignment or vending or some kind of distributor managed inventory. Those are all just basic blocking and tackling that we've talked about many times before, Tom, but I think they'd be at the top of my list if I'm on the board with the company.
As the pricing tailwinds have evaporated, essentially, now is absolutely the time there's a lot of opportunity out there. Customers are paying attention. It's going to be competitive here over the next several months.
It can be fun to watch because, I mean, everybody, once they're complacent in a routine, they're all like surprised because nobody's bothered to stick their head up to see what's going on. But there will be a number of changes and realignments. But this is sort of the old story. If you're a well-managed distributor, some good leadership, you look at this as an opportunity. If you're not, nobody likes change except the wet baby, and they're going to whine, and they'll probably be you'll see 1% growth in the market, but when somebody's going to grow at 10%, that's coming out of somebody's backside somewhere. And I think you're going to see a lot of that frothy stuff that we talk about.
Mike, as always, great conversation. Look forward to the next one.
I can't wait to see what happens next time.